They hate when you elevate. Yeah.
ATP, what it do with your boy Rain? Yeah, it's that ATP Combat Media Show. We back at it again. Catching up. So I was waiting for this to be confirmed, but I think this is about as close to being confirmed as we're going to get, right? As Jarron Ennis is now posting on his social media this card, right? He's posting the fact that it looks like he's going to be defending his IBF title in Philadelphia on November 9th. It looks like that's what it's going to be. Bam Rodriguez to co-main event the event. There's another fighter that's going to be on the event as well, but on top of my head right now, I can't remember it. As it seems like it's still developing as far as the fights being put on the card, but it seems pretty solid at this point. If I'm wrong, obviously I'll be back on here to let you guys know that I'm wrong. But from what I understand right now, it looks like Jarron Ennis is going to be defending his IBF title against Karen Kukadachian at 147, which we're going to get into it a little bit, because what does that actually mean at this point? Let's start off with where we left off last time we were speaking about Jarron Ennis. Last time we were talking about Jarron Ennis, he was in negotiations, a messy negotiation. Eddie Hearn and Brian Norman Sr. and Brian Norman Jr. and Adrian Clark and maybe some people at Top Rank, I'm not too sure. But ultimately, there was this big messy thing going on, right? Brian Norman Sr. going on a campaign across all these different YouTube channels, these content creation channels, to debunk a interview that Jarron Ennis put out there, saying that there was an offer put out to the Normans and that they rejected the offer. And Senior came out very quickly to say that it wasn't that we rejected the offer as far as fighting Jarron Ennis. We rejected an offer as far as financial wise, agreement wise, where we were at. We weren't on the same page, and that there was a price point that the Normans were interested in order for them to put their title on the line to give Jarron Ennis that opportunity to unify. And the content creation space went crazy, right? People are going to pick sides, as they normally do in this space. People are going to pick sides, and the word duck was getting thrown around, and the Normans were being challenged on their position as far as how much money they were asking for. They were being accused of pricing themselves out of an opportunity. Jarron Ennis had his detractors who were condemning him and I don't want to say discrediting, but we're basically holding him accountable for an opportunity that was on the table for him to finally unify, and that, allowing Eddie Hearn to give an offer or not take an offer that the Normans were offering in order to make that fight happen. It was all over the place. But at the end of the day, that being said, Eddie Hearn had responded to a lot of this with the fact and idea that vacating the IBF title may be the next best thing for Jarron Ennis to move up to 154, because they weren't very interested in getting involved in the Karen. I cannot say his last name for anything, so I'm going to stop doing that to his last name. But we know who I'm talking about, Karen Dukajoggin. Anyway, there was no interest in fighting him because they already had fought before, and it was a horrible fight. Karen was running around the ring, not willing to engage Jarron Ennis, and Jarron Ennis, a lot of people use that as some sort of exposing factor to say that he wasn't able to cut off the ring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Jarron Ennis has worked very hard since that fight. In between those fights, had fought Roman Villa and also fought recently David Avanesian. Had two wonderful performances, has built up a big following for himself. Market value is going up as people really want to see him fight, and they didn't want to go backwards, right, and fight Karen. But at the end of the day, Jarron Ennis has also stated that he wants to unify and be an undisputed champion at the welterweight division, and the IBF has put this mandatory in front of him, and it just seems like a big mess, and there was a lot of hard decisions that were going to be made. Me, myself, I was leaning towards him going to 154, being that 154 is the most stacked division with talent right now. It's probably the hardest division to stay undefeated in right now. Wanted to see Boots up there, potentially could run into a Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence, and then the plethora of other 154 pounders up there that are demons in their own right? But it looks like from the outside looking in, it just looks like Ennis's are really focused on becoming undisputed, and that although Eddie Hearn and Karen Kukadajian's team, that Eddie Hearn lost a bid war against Karen Kukudadjian, that most people are going to say Eddie let go, right? He didn't bid competitively because he didn't want the fight, probably thinking they were going to go up to 154. But now Boots has gotten involved. His team has gotten involved in it and say, look, Eddie, there's something we really want to make happen. So back to the negotiation table, Eddie Hearn goes with that team. And it looks like they came to an understanding as to, you know what, let's make the fight happen, but let's keep the fight in Philadelphia, being that we already have the Wells Fargo Center locked down. Boots has a huge following out there, so they know it's going to be a big show out there. Even though people don't want to see the fight, people want to see Boots perform. One only can imagine how much money Eddie Hearn has spent in order to convince him to do that, being that they had the home field advantage and they're the ones paying for the fight. Who knows what Eddie Hearn negotiated to put that together? And one might also say, if you're going to do all that, why didn't you just give the money to Brian Norman Sr. and his son and make that fight happen? Well, hindsight is always 2020. We're in the present moment right now. It looks like what we're dealing with is a November 9th showdown between Karen Kukudadjian and Boots Ennis. And like I said, co-main eventing by Bam Bam Rodriguez. And I can't remember, there's another fight on that card that's supposed to be very, very good. Not to mention Boots' last card, honestly, was a very entertaining card. A lot of his fighters are on that card. Jaleel Hackett was on that card. It was a really good card. So who knows who he's going to have on this card. I would assume they're going to make the best of it and try to make an event out of it on November 9th, right? So we'll see. Assuming that Boots Ennis wins this fight with Karen Kukudadjian, which I have no reason to believe anything else. Let's see what they do afterwards as far as unifications is concerned. Now, one would say that Brian Norman Jr. and Boots have already built such a momentum of a following based off the way this negotiation went. People really want to see that fight right now. They're considered the two biggest threats in the welterweight division. So seeing them come together for a unification title fight might be something that's kind of profitable for Eddie Hearn. He has to make his lemonade, being that I believe he really doesn't want to keep Boots at 147, that he wants to go up to 154 with him because he knows there's way bigger fights to make up there. But look, Brian Norman Sr., Jr., the Ennis team, they've built a lot of attention, right? A lot of drama around this fight happening, and there's a lot of demand at this point. They've built a large demand for the fight to happen. So they get to capitalize off that. Eddie Hearn also communicated that he thinks that the position that Mario Barrios' team is in and Stanionis' team is with the PBC, that looks like they're having hard times making fights happen over there for whatever reason. You see Mario Barrios getting ready to perform on the undercard of a Jake Paul card. It's Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson card to defend his title against somebody we're not even familiar with like that. And Stanionis, we haven't heard anything from. So anyway, Eddie Hearn seems to believe that there's room there, there's opportunity there to be able to put fights together and potentially get some unification title fights going on with these fighters and get Boots closer to that undisputed status that he's trying to get to, right? So let's see what happens, guys. You know what I mean? At this point, November 9th, Jarron Boots Ennis versus Karen Kukudadjian in the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. Tell me what you think in the content. What do you think about this? Is this the best move? Is Boots doing the right thing, staying at 147, continuing his tour, trying to become a undisputed champion at welterweight, or is he wasting his time? Does he need to really move to 154 to make some other fights and some other opportunities come together? You guys let me know what you think in the comment. Once again, shout out to all my subscribers. Really appreciate you guys supporting this channel. If this is your first time tapping into content, like I said earlier, I invite you to go ahead, hit the subscribe button, man. Hit your bell icons as well so you're getting alerts when all this content is dropping. It's your boy Rain. You know how we came in the game, but at this point, we out.